Bleach is actually coming back this year, man. Or you know what I mean. Like regardless of whether it gets delayed or whatever, but it's coming back, dude. And sometimes I tend to just get in that mode where I'm like, man, Bleach is really coming back. And I guess the reason why it's still so hard to process is because we haven't gotten a trailer or barely any new info, right, about it. But it's there, man, and we know that it's there. We know that at the very least, sometime either at the end of this year or early next year, the Bleach anime is returning to bring us that 1,000-year Blood War greatness. And because of how much I really enjoy the 1,000-year Blood War, and because I consider a certain section of that arc to be one of my favorite portions of the arc, I really wanted to take a look back, and not only take a look back, but also ask all of you, what is peak Bleach to you? Because I feel like when we talk about peak Bleach, it's always an interesting conversation in terms of it being either a certain moment, a certain stretch of moments, a certain arc, or whatever it is. So whatever that is to you, whether it's a moment, a stretch, like I'm going to be talking about some certain stretches, or a particular arc, what is peak Bleach to you? And if you wouldn't mind explaining why it is peak Bleach to you, I would love to read it in the comment section down below, man. But in my case, y'all have heard me talk about it many different times on this channel, man. Y'all know how much I love Hueco Mundo. The Hueco Mundo arc for me, bro, is just bam. But today we're going to be specifically talking about what peak Bleach is for me, right? Of like, whenever I think about why it is that this story has resonated with me for so many years, and what keeps me coming back. Like, what is the section of the story that any time that I read it, no matter how many times that I read it, it gets me extremely excited. And I have two separate stretches, and then two just for the rawness. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and start with one of the stretches here. And this stretch might honestly be not only the best stretch in the series, but it might be one of the greatest stretches of chapters to ever come out of Shonen Jump magazine, man. This right here is extremely special. I'm biased towards this stretch because this is what was coming out whenever I first got into Bleach, and whenever I initially started, finding out about the whole reading manga online and watching anime on TV and going and watching subtitled anime and all that stuff. It was during this era, man. And son, starting off the stretch from volume 18, which is when Ichigo saved Rukia in one of the greatest now you feel like #1 moments, so chapter 150. From chapter 150 to Ichigo versus Grimjaw. This stretch right here, we're talking Ichigo versus Byakuya, right? And then him of course, fodderizing the three captains, taking on Byakuya. You have Soifun versus Yoruichi. Aizen revealing himself to the Soul Society. Byakuya's incredible moments there at the end of the Soul Society arc. Gin and Tosin, they're all raising up into the heavens. Aizen takes off the glasses. He just absolute greatness. And the Ichigo's first Bankai reveal, the Tetsuzangetsu, come on now, man. The first time we got to see Hollow Ichigo within battle. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff. And then transitioning to the beginning of the Arrancar saga with the mystery, the revelation of Ishin being a Soul Reaper, Ulquiorra and Yami showing up, Ichigo's battle with his own inner self, which was so not only refreshing, but just incredible to see in a manga like this. Like a continuous, and it wasn't just something that took place within one chapter, which is what I love so much about that arc. Not only about that arc, but the entire series as a whole. Ichigo has a lot of self-reflection moments that are really relatable, that I've always adored. Like there's a certain chapter later on that I'll talk about whenever we go to the Blood War. But it reminded me of this particular section. But the fact that we had an entire arc in the first part, I think it's called the Arrancar Arrival arc, with the introduction of Shinji and all that stuff. But during that portion, the main basis behind it, the main driving force behind the narrative was Ichigo's inner battle with himself. That is what was driving all of those conflicts, right? That's what was driving, at least for me, all of the tension. Like from the moment that he met Ulquiorra and he started going up in like Suomori, and then who stopped him? Hollow Ichigo. And then his fear of Hollow Ichigo started clicking in, and then it really made him like, yo, should I really go over to the Vizard side. At the time, we had no idea who the Vizards were. We didn't know if they were good dudes who wanted to genuinely help Ichigo, individuals who wanted to take advantage of him. We didn't know, and the same thing with Ichigo. So like we were put in the same type of mindset as Ichigo for that particular portion. And then you get the return of the captains. You know, we got to see Ruki for the first time in a while, you know, Toshiro, Rangiku, Renji. And things started popping off. And then the Arankars really start coming in. We get introduced to Grimmjow. We get the release of the Gentei Kaiju, legendary moment. Ichigo and Grimmjow's first matchup. And then when Ichigo got whooped like that, that's when he was like, no, I've had enough, man. I've had enough, like, son. This thing is no longer going to take a hold of me. I'm going to control it. And just, you know, his determination at that point to finally come face to face with his own self, you know, which was a pretty much a representation of him coming face to face with his own demons. And it was so cool, man. And like I said, the fact that a manga, because at the time I was pretty new to anime and manga, but even now going back to it, it still hits the same, and I would say even harder because of the fact that I've gotten older, and my appreciation for this section just continues to grow with each and every rewatch and reread. Just seeing Ichigo's journey from, you know, and Soul Society being extremely cocky, being brought back down to the point to where he's like, "Yo, there's this thing that's holding me back. Like this thing is extremely powerful," but his fear of it and his fear of it taking over him. And then that leaking into his life to where he can no longer differentiate his life between Soul Reaper and not anymore. Like it's taken over both sections, and he genuinely becomes depressed. And just seeing his journey through that, overcoming Hollow Ichigo in that incredible battle, then the whole thing's going down with Orihime, because now Orihime is having her own character journey within this arc as well. Chad, because he's like, yo, I'm extremely weak. No one's relying on me anymore. I got to go on my own training arc. Uryu is going on his own thing because Ryuken is telling him like, yo, what's going on here, baby? And so you see Ryuken and Ishin and Uryu, and they're doing their own thing. And then, of course, so like all the main cast are going through their own character journeys. And while all that's going down, the plot is going to crazy levels. We're getting introduced to more of the Espada. Grimmjow loses his arm. I mean, it's like, yo, what is going on? Ulquiorra continues to be the menacing figure that he is. Aizen with his awesome sauce. And it's like, yo, this is nuts. And then you get to Hueco Mundo, which for me, man, I mean, Halcyon days, or Halcyon days, I'm trying to remember exactly how to word that, but I think it's Halcyon days, however it is. Whenever Orihime leaves to Hueco Mundo, that chapter is one of the saddest chapters, both in the anime and in the manga. It always hits different. But from then on, whenever Ichigo's like, yo, screw this, screw everything going on right now, because he was still dealing with his own inner self. And the fact that he was whooping Grimmjow like he was, I mean, granted Grimmjow didn't have an arm, but the way that the Kubo booked that on some wrestling stuff was so genius. And then seeing Shinji, like the full potential of the Hollow Mask and holification, finding out more about all of that and the Vizards, and then heading off to Hueco Mundo, because Hueco Mundo for me is so special. I love infiltration just in anything. Like, that's why I think I'm such a fan of video games, because video games have so many infiltration missions, and why Metal Gear Solid is my favorite video game franchise, like that and Trails of Cold Steel. So it's like these things that have these infiltration missions I adore, because there's just something about it that just I never get tired of. And the thing with Hueco Mundo is the build up to the arc, and you know, for so many years, when the first time that we got to see the Menos Grande show up in episode 14, and we see this thing pop out of Hueco Mundo, and we're like, what in the flying flagnards? And then we got some more insights to it, you know, with the Grand Fisher and a couple other hollows, like getting in and out of Hueco Mundo. So we knew this thing existed. And whenever Aizen went up into the Garganta, and you got to see more of the Menos Grande, and you're like, yo, these things are menacing. And then, of course, the further we got to know more about it with the Adhuchas and the Basulord and all that stuff, it's like, yo, this is where they're from. We're going to be heading into the place that Aizen took so much interest in, that he was willing to betray the Soul Society to fully invest himself into what was going on here. And all that build-up, and then just finally going there. And the extreme hype of whenever they finally break through the barrier, and you have Orihime, Ulquiorra, Grimmjow, they're all like, yo, they're here. Like, dude, the legends are here post-training. Ichigo, Uryu, Chad, and then meeting Nelliel. The anime did some really good stuff with the filler during this section, but even just in the manga, like just going through Hueco Mundo, seeing Las Noches for the first time, that glorious open spread, the meeting with the Espada, and then the incredible this stuff right here. Like in terms of the main cast. Dog, Ichigo versus Dordoni, peak rawness. The rawness and swag, son, was off the flipping roof. Like, yeah, only an instant. And then you had the Uryu truly having to utilize every single part of his of his arsenal in order to win his battle. You know, same thing with what was going on with with the trolling and whatnot with in Renji and what was going on with Silopero and whatnot, right? And how Chad up until that point had always come so close to winning his battles and had come just a weedy bit short every single time. He finally managed to pwn Gantenbein. And then Noitora shows up. And then in the midst of all of that, Rukia goes face to face with Aronieto, who she thinks is Kaya and Shiba. And so all of them are going through their own personal, like the climaxes of their character journeys up until that point in time. And it was just so interesting seeing all of them have to overcome themselves before they had to overcome the enemy. And it just, the battles were out of this world. The Ichigo versus Ukiura part 1. With that insane, like, yo, you're the one who brought her a Hime? Like, bye, going in. They're like, Swimmer, Grimjaw comes in, Grimjaw versus Ukiura. And then the legendary, iconic, phenomenal round 3 of one of the greatest battles to ever come out of Shonen Jump magazine in Ichigo versus Grimjaw. From Ichigo saving Rukia until that portion, or until like Ichigo versus Grimjaw and then the end of that right there for me for so many years was peak Bleach and nothing even came close. Nothing even came close. However, there were moments that I still consider to be on the same level as those for sure. The first one being Ichigo versus Ukiura, peak fight right there, man. You know, there's a lot of 5-star classics in this series. Ichigo versus Ukiura is absolutely legendary. And then in terms of rawness, in terms of stuff that I will never forget from the first time that I experienced it, and no matter how many times I experienced it, it never gets old for me. Ichigo versus Aizen, man. As a matter of fact, all of Dayside. Just the entirety of Dayside. I'm not a big Fate Karakuraton arc fan, but the Dayside section of that arc is so special, bro. It really is, man. Like, there's a lot of awesome sauce in there. But specifically for me, with Ichigo in his inner battle, finally going up against Tensuzangetsu in a one-on-one conflict to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. And then the fact that we get to see Aizen and Gin invading the real Karakura town, and we see how all of Ichigo's classmates are dealing with the situation and Don Kanonji and all that stuff, but it's like, yo, the threat level was huge and we had no idea what was going to happen. And then Ishin was draining all the spiritual pressure just to make sure that Ichigo finished his training. So when Ichigo finally came back and the whole stuff with Gin and Aizen and all of that insanity, Ichigo returns in one of the rawest moments of all time. The chain wielding, the long hair, the news on fuck. I was like, dog. Dangai Ichigo, greatness, Mugetsu. I mean, it's legendary, bro. And then leading that into the time skip and just the aftermath of the Ronko arc, just amazing stuff. I will always hold those two portions, those two moments in time, in Ichigo versus Aizen and Ichigo versus Ukiura, as being really special portions. But the other stretch of chapters that for me is also peak Bleach, alongside from the end of Soul Society to the Ichigo vs. Grimjaw fight in the Hueco Mundo arc, is this section right here, man. Yo, I can't wait for this to get animated, bro. From volume 55, which is the beginning of the 1,000-Year Blood War, until the halfway point, which was from 547 / whenever Bambietta fights Komamura. That right there for me might even be better than this right here. It's tough. I switch between the two on days because the thing is, I have such a nostalgia connection because Bleach was my first real love in like anime and manga. Like whenever I was first started searching it out and I saw Soul Society and Hueco and all the great, I was like, yo, this medium is goated, you know? Like, I'll always have that nostalgia factor and love for that section. But in terms of experiencing something weekly, in terms of experiencing something with so many years of buildup and seeing it all take place with our very eyes, and it's surpassing all expectations. The 1,000-year blood war, man. Dude, from chapter 480 until I believe it's like chapter 560 or whatever it is. That right there, dog. This man Kubo was so far into his bag, I don't know if he could go any deeper. It was just non-stop legendary. Let me just pull out the volume covers. Let me just pull out the volume covers, man. Because this section is special. This section is special, bro. Like, dude, utter insanity. I don't know how the man did it, but the madman managed to write something as incredible as the stretch just talked about. This man, bro, just look at these volume covers. Just look at these volume covers. The introduction to the arc. The greatness in Hueco Mundo. The battle in the Soul Society. Yamamoto versus Juha / Ichigo. Now you feel like #1, chapter 500, 12th greatness. Kenpachi battle. Unohana versus Kenpachi with the Royal Guard's introduction. Ichigo training. Oh my. Come on now. Everything but the rain. The flashback I had been waiting for the entire series. From the moment that I watched episode 9 for the first time, I was like, we had to see this flashback. We had to see this flashback. And it was so flipping amazing. Leading from that to what was my original phone wallpaper for so many years, which was the moment where Ichigo finally took control of his Zanpakuto. The Zanpakuto bowed before Ichigo, and he pulled out the 2 blades in what was one of the greatest chapters in the entire series. And then leading off with, I'm like, bro, it's peak. It's peak, man. It seriously is. I mean, with the mysteries. Because we had known about the Quincy's, we'd known about them for so many years because, thanks to Uryu and then seeing the potential of what they could do whenever Uryu fought Mayuri Kurotsuchi back in the Soul Society arc. And we got to see exactly how strong they could be thanks to that, thanks to Ryuken and whatnot. But we never actually got to see, who the top tiers, aside from Ryuken, are in the Quincy's. And so starting it off, and you hear about the Vanderreich, you hear about the all of these things that are going down, and you get to meet the Buckbeard. And like, what in the flying fun is going on? Haribel's captured. Ichigo, we got to an amazing. I love the beginning of this arc so much because it was like a return to form. Coming after the Fullbring arc, which had an amazing ending. We see that he's back to poning hollows and whatnot, all that stuff, and his friends, of course, are there with him. But whenever that Arrancar showed up, and he also had Quincy abilities, I was like, what in the flying flagners is going on? I was like, yo, what is going on, dude? And the vibes were very similar for me of that of like Hueco Mundo or the Arrancar arrival, where it was normal life being interrupted, and it caused like a lot of doubt and mystery in your mind. Like, yo, what in the flying flagners is happening? And so throughout this entire situation, we had this man Ichigo being like, yo, is he a hollow? Is he a Quincy? Is he both? Like, what's going on? And that's how all of us as readers are feeling. And then we actually get to go look and see what's actually going down. We see the Haribel was captured. Now, Neliel returns. We have Kisuke being like, yo, we need to go into Hueco Mundo. And we got to start seeing some characters return. We didn't know if it was Grimjaw, chapter 500. Ichigo starts going ham against Quillgear. You're like, yo, this is nuts. And then we had, I think it was chapter 494. Where the Quincy's invaded the Soul Society for the first time. And son, those chapters of non-stop, back-to-back battles, just the way that they were strategizing, the army was moving, the threat level was at max, Bankais were being stolen. They were trying to figure out any type of way to get out of the situation. When Kenpachi finally showed up and started taking care of business, then Juha showed up. Byakuya getting pwned against Asnot. Oh my goodness, man. Then Juha versus Yamamoto, which is without question one of the best fights in the entire series. And of course, the legendary chapter 511, man. I mean, dog. And then Ichigo showing up, and just, man, this stretch is so good, dude. And the thing is that scares me is that this stretch right here for in Bleach, I think I actually would prefer in the anime for nostalgic purposes, but the anime does a magnificent job of covering this stretch right here. So when I think about that stretch and how the anime handled it with the music, with the voice acting, and all that stuff, if the Thousand Year Blood War gets the same treatment, and we get a marvelous adaptation of the Thousand Year Blood War, dog, this section right here is going to, without question, end up being one of the greatest things to ever come out of Shonen Jump magazine. Because to me, it already is. And if it gets a great anime adaptation, oh man, forget it. Forget it. It's clear top one. Clear. Dog, there is so much greatness in this, what is it, 7-volume stretch. I mean, from just straight up chaos to rawness to emotional moments to legit character arcs taking place before your very eyes, of like Kiraku having to now deal with the fact that he is now in a position of leadership, getting introduced to the Royal Guard, which we had been waiting for so many years to see, regardless of what happened with them later on. The fact that whenever we first saw them for the first time, like, dog, that's the Royal Guard. I remember hearing about these guys, that they were the only ones capable of taking on the Menos Grande back in the day, and you're telling me we're seeing them here now? Like, and it was just, dude, seeing all these things that we never thought we'd ever see. You know, like Yamamoto's Bankai, the leader of the Quincy's. Then we got the song and them invading it for the second time. Uryu, you're finally trying to figure out what's going on with him. Hoshvald and God, man, Bambiella versus Komamura. That was just greatness, bro. Absolute awesome sauce. And then of course that incredible what I was leading into earlier, leading into the Everything But the Rain flashback, was one of those moments, which is I think why I still really adore the Fullbring arc, because the Fullbring arc was filled with these types of Ichigo and introspection moments, and filled with a lot of that type of stuff. But when it comes to one of my favorite parts about why Ichigo is my favorite character in Bleach, and why I think I've had such a strong connection to the story for as long as I have, I remember when this chapter initially dropped. I think it was chapter 500 or 528 or 527. It was the chapter where Ichigo goes back and he sees his boss again. And he's trying to just, get rid of all of the depression inside of him, trying to escape once more in the same way he did back on Hueco Mundo. Because he has no idea what to do. He is so confused. It feels like it's been lied to his entire life. He, after seeing what's happening right here, after seeing what he was told by Juha, Zanpakuto is broken. He's told that he's a failure, and he just doesn't know what to do anymore. So he escapes. And he has these couple bits and moments with his boss that I just thought were extremely beautiful, and just really incredible. I can't wait to see how they do that in the anime. But then he sits down and has this conversation with his dad and Ishin, and Ishin proceeds to tell him exactly what happened all of those years ago between him and Masaki and all that stuff. And Ichigo leaves that with so much determination. And there's this one panel that's so glorious, and he manages to make his way back up there. And what we see from that, and just the way that he gained this newfound, not just confidence in the fact that, he was put on this planet to do something, like just knowing the whole circumstances behind his birth and what took place there, and finally getting the answers he seeked for so long, it felt like a massive weight off his shoulders, this mysterious weight that had been there for so many years. And so to know that he wasn't directly responsible for his mom's death anymore, that it was Juha, and now he actually had to go out and do the thing that he had talked about doing back in the beginning of the series, which is the reason why he wanted to protect so many people, why Ichigo's character is all about protecting. And when always because he failed to protect his mom. And so to get all those things at once, and to see his newfound determination, he goes out and gets his new Zanpakutos, conquers finally Zangetsu, who was actually young Juha Bach, and like the twist, the revelations, the raw. It's just, man, this section right here, like as y'all could tell earlier, y'all know how much I love that section from Soul Society to Hueco Mundo. But man, the beginning of the Blood War is like right there. They're duking it out, bro. And that to me is peak Bleach. And that to me is exactly why this series has resonated with me for so many years, and why it will continue to resonate with me for years to come, because it has such amazing stretches like this. And like I would have loved to put other stuff up here that I really enjoy as well. Like I was saying before, I really love the internal conflicts that took place between the Fullbring arc. Like I genuinely really did. But the only thing the Fullbring arc was missing, that these arcs had, was the intensity, you know, because those arcs, or the Fullbring arc, I love the Fullbring arc for the same reason why I love certain sections in Gintama, where even though they aren't as intense and or like crazy as some of the other parts, there are portions for you to sit down, reflect, and truly question not only certain things about yourself, but also certain things about the world around you. And I'm glad to see that happen with Ichigo in the Fullbring arc, with the mystery, and it was really, really good. But the thing that these two arcs had is that they had that with the weight and insanity of all the stuff happening around it as well. And so I think that's what made the from the like halfway point of Soul Society until the end, or from like a little over halfway of Soul Society up until the Ichigo vs. Grimjaw fight in Hueco Mundo, and then from the beginning of Thousand Year Blood War until like the Master Masculine Fighter, or maybe even, I'd go even as far as to say probably Astronaut versus Rukia, just because of the Bankai, you know, Avatar for that. From there, like that entire stretch, man, I mean, just A1 beautiful. I mean, just Kubo's absolute best. And the fact that he has stretches like this within his manga, I mean, I love Bleach, bro. Like, and this is why I cannot wait for the anime to return, because of the potential of the anime possibly surpassing this and making a true peak Bleach. And it's just, man, I adore this section of the story, or these sections of the story. And then, of course, talking just in terms of individual moments and whatnot, just for the rawness, the Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra fight, and the Ichigo vs. Aizen fight. In terms of Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra, actually, now that we're still talking about Ichigo's character, I really love Ichigo's character in Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra, because I feel like he learned so much just taking on Grimjaw, not only about himself and about how he truly is, but though the arc up until that point, he had been faced with so many, you know, situations where I felt like things were hopeless on his end. And the fact that he was able to stand in the face of that hopelessness dead on, I'm talking despair was in front of his eyes, there was no way he could win this, and he still gave that magnificent speech right before he got killed. That was such an amazing moment, man. Like, I will always love that Ichigo speech before Ulquiorra, like whenever Ulquiorra went into the second resurrection, and they were duking it out whenever Ichigo had like half of his clothes turned off and everything because he lost a lot of his spiritual pressure. That speech was beautiful. I mean, it is amazing. One of these days, I think I might need to sit down and make a video on that speech, because that speech, the build up of the entire arc up until that point for that speech was glorious. Absolutely glorious, man. But yeah, just so many amazing moments in the series, so many peak stretches and moments and things within the story itself that it's always hard to pick just one. But if I had to go with just one for right now, I'd probably, for nostalgic purposes, pick the end of Soul Society to the midway point of Hueco Mundo. And whenever I say midway point of Hueco Mundo, like, I feel like I might actually go a little further, because I really, really love, the thing is, the reason why I always pick Ichigo vs. Grimjaw as last is because for so many years in the anime, or I wouldn't even say so many, well, at least in the Adult Swim it was a couple years, but Bleach ended for a lot of people at episode 167 because the Shusuke Amagai arc took so long to get dubbed. It got dubbed in like 2010 or whatever, right? So that for so long was like, Ichigo vs. Grimjaw was like the halfway point of Hueco Mundo. But honestly, for me, the Nelio transformation that takes place right after that is absolutely amazing. Nelio versus Noitora is spectacular. Like Kenpachi versus Noitora, and the flashback sequences. I really adore that section right there. And then Byakuya versus Omari. And then you have the initial invasion of the fake Karakura town with like Aizen, the setup there, and then you get the turn back the pendulum flashback. That stuff, like honestly, that just might be it. Like from Soul Society to the turn back the pendulum flashback, man, just absolute greatness. But I really, really adore just Bleach as a whole. It's Bleach, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, of course, so much awesome stuff, but that's why I'm looking forward to seeing the comment section today, because I know there's a lot of people out there that love the series just as much as I do. So I want to see what your favorite stretches in the story are, what your favorite moments, whatever it is. Like, what is peak Bleach to you? And if you want to go in depth or whatever it is, or if you don't want to, just I'm looking forward to reading it, because Bleach is coming back soon, man, and it's a good time to go back and reflect and look back. I'm about to start doing a reread. I don't know if I'm going to reread the whole series, but I feel like I'm going to reread the time skip for sure. Like, I want to reread from Fullbring to the end of the series for sure. Because Fullbring, I have not reread that arc in years. I rewatched it just recently, but in terms of reading it once again, it's been a long time since I've reread that arc. So I want to look back and see it from the manga standpoint once again, to see if I can come out of it with a different eye and whatnot. But I'll see y'all next time, man. Bleach, awesome sauce, dude. We have a lot of greatness to look forward to when it comes to the anime when it returns. And I can't wait for it, man. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace out. Now you feel like number one. Shining bright for everyone.